Good evening, everyone. It is almost 7:30 in the evening on Monday, and once again, another week has started. And glad Monday is over. It was an okay Monday, as Mondays go. And hold on a second. Let me turn this down a little bit. As always, recently I have the Neumann NDH-20s on my head, plugged into the THX AAA from Monolith. And I have been thinking hard about a comparison with the Neumanns. Clearly, today's video title is the Neumann NDH-20 versus the Denon D7200, and we are getting to that in a few moments. But the real question that I have is the following. What headphone really would give the Neumann a run for its money at a cheaper price? We know for a fact that the Neumanns do not deserve the $500 MSRP. I have said this repeatedly. The vast majority of products do not deserve the MSRP. Meaning, and when I say deserve, I mean an individual, a consumer, should not go out there and be glad to put down the MSRP price and walk away thinking they did nothing wrong. The Neumanns are not worth $500. What are they worth? See, I don't know. Because they do something unique. What is that the Neumanns do that is unique? Well, the Neumanns do in fact reproduce music in a kind of a smooth, soft way. And if you're not used to listening to different types of headphones, planar magnetics, dynamics, Tesla technology, Bayers, Odyssey, Sony, Focal, all sorts of these manufacturers, then you don't really, I don't think it'll be easy to appreciate what the Neumanns do in fact bring to the table, which is a very unique tonality. But I don't think it's an accurate tonality. See, that's the thing. Zeos Pantera was wrong. He is sometimes wrong. People who are fans of Zeos, you must accept this. He is not God, despite his bombastic attitude. So the question is, what price range should I recommend the Neumanns, if I recommend the Neumanns, and I haven't reached that conclusion yet. So I'm in the market currently looking for a substantially cheaper pair of headphones that would one up or at least compete with the Neumanns. And I found a couple of contenders, things that any individual should be able to purchase if they save up just a little bit of money. Now, I don't know if these particular contenders are going to win or are going to be good challengers to the Neumanns, but the idea is we find them, we test them, and then we compare. And hopefully I'll be able to make those final decisions the next several days. Now, I can't promise this will happen very quickly, but it will happen within the next couple of days that I will make a decision and move forward from there. So let's get on to it. Today, the 7200s. Now, the Denon 7200s, D7200s, are an interesting foray from Denon because Denon has been known to produce these warm, luscious, bass accentuated headphones. They've been doing it for a long time. And with the advent of the 5200s, the 7200s, the 9200s, Denon has walked away from that type of tonality. Now, the 5200s do, in fact, have a warmer tonality to them, which is why I'm not using the 5200s, even though they are about the same price, maybe a little bit cheaper than the Neumanns, both brand new. So I went to the 7200s because the 7200s are marketed as reference class headphones. And I do, in fact, believe that the 7200s are, in comparison to the 5200, much more analytical and closer to neutral. So that's what we're going to do today. Before we get to the actual sound test, let's look at Denon's website. They say that the 7200 is the new reference headphone, drawing on more than 50 years experience in the headphone design and development. Blah, 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 blah. Every part of this no compromise design is all about sound quality, comfort, and the ultimate listening experience. Well, we shall see. Let's start off. The question we will have for this comparison is, do the Denons compete with the Neumanns? Do they reproduce the same type of musicality, with the same type of presence to the music, same type of soundstage, same type of bass, same type of mids, all of that sort of stuff? Or do the Denons produce something different? And then you get to decide whether you like that difference, if there is one. All right. So I've been listening to Maggie Rogers. I'm going to stop doing that and go to the test playlist. And we are going to start off with Mountains, as we always do. Okay, the amp is at negative 18. I'm going to have to bring that up a little bit. The amp is now at negative 10 decibels. And let's start off with Mountains. I have the Neumanns on my head. There's that low rumble in the background that happens that is not particularly well produced in the Neumanns. I mean, it's present, but there's no real substance to it. You can hear that there's something in the background that's supposed to be out there, and it's just buried somewhere. And it might as well not exist with the headphones on, with the Neumanns. There are these rolling drums, and I imagine there would be these big, giant barrel drums. And they don't have any presence with the Neumanns. Now, big type of barrel drums, this is what I think of. If you've ever seen the movie Spaceballs, in a couple of scenes in that movie, what happens is that they show an orchestra, and there's this guy with a big drum, and he's beating the drums, and that's the orchestra. That's the soundtrack to the movie. It's being played on that big starship. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, maybe if you get a chance to watch the movie, it's funny. You'll recognize what I'm talking about. We're getting close to the crescendo. I'm going to skip ahead about 2 minutes and just get to it. And all the instruments are going to come together now. Thing with the Neumanns is because they smooth everything out, the tonality is so smooth. I would almost call it buttery smooth. I don't know of any other headphone that is as smooth in reproducing music as the Neumanns, and that's the really unique thing about it. It's a real joy to listen to these headphones for the sole purpose of joy of listening to them. When all of the instruments are together around 2 minutes of the song, it is complex. But the Neumanns simply don't bring out the complexity. It's supposed to bring out the details. There's no sparkle to the highs. The treble is quite muted. It's tamped down. Now, I've told you in the past that I am not a fan of treble. I am very treble sensitive. But this is the other extreme where I'm not even getting the treble anymore. And with a song like Mountains, is particularly in that portion where there's that crescendo, you should get that really robust and sharp treble. That's where all the detail is. And it's just not pronounced. Now you could say you could increase the volume. Well, I'm already at negative 10 decibels, which is extremely loud. And when the headphones are playing, or the music is playing on the headphones, I can't hear anything else. You have to stop making excuses for just a failure to compete, right? You have a kid, you really like that kid, I get it, but your kid is a C student. Stop making excuses that the teacher's not right, that the course is not being taught correctly, that the books are wrong, that your kid is under too much pressure. Your kid's just dumb. All right, look, you have bad genes. Accept it. It's okay. Not every kid can be a B or an A student. Your kid's somewhere in the middle. That's cool. It's okay being somewhere in the middle. If you're happy with it and your kid's happy with it, who cares? C students become politicians. C students end up ruling the world. Now, I'm not saying the Neumanns are going to end up ruling the world. I doubt it. But I think that the Neumanns are C. They're in the middle somewhere. They're so, it's okay. I mean, I enjoy it. It's good. I like the Neumanns. But they don't do anything to excel. They don't do anything to get recognized beyond that smooth tonality, which in itself is unique, I must admit. But if you're going to market the headphones as analytical headphones, as mixing and monitoring headphones, then that smooth tonality is not what you want, right? That's not what you're looking for. Otherwise, there's no point to having the headphones. You want to have the critical information to properly mix. And you want to have that critical information to properly master. The headphones, the Neumanns, simply don't seem to provide that. There's no real texture to the songs. There's no real depth to the songs. There's not enough separation to when the song gets really complicated, like in Mountains. So let's switch to the 7200s. Will it be different? Let's find out. Okay, 7200s on my head, and immediately you will notice that the 7200s do not have the same amount of clamping force, nor do they have the same amount of noise isolation. Let's start with the 7200s. And immediately I can tell you that it is cleaner. Whereas the Neumann sounded muffled, the 7200s, it just opens up. And the rumble really does come out much better on the 7200s. It doesn't sound overwhelming because I can still hear all the details at the beginning of the song. I just know that rumble is there. Whereas with the Neumanns, the rumble was somewhere. I couldn't recognize it. I had to pay real close attention for it. There seems to be a little bit more soundstage to the 7200s. Mountains is not a song I would recommend to find soundstage, but in comparison to the Neumanns, it feels as if there is more. I'm going to skip ahead to the middle of the song. Here comes the crescendo. As far as detail is concerned, I think the 7200s are, if not the same amount of detail the Neumann's, just a little bit more. The thing that really jumps out is the bass reproduction. The ear cups shake, vibrate in that crescendo. It sounds great. It doesn't get muddy. It doesn't bleed into the other frequencies. The treble is still fine. It's not leaps and bounds better than the Neumanns, but in combination with everything I just said, with it feeling like it's more open, it just sounds like there's more to the song. Now, that's a very subjective thing to say, but I think it's a little bit of objectivity involved as well, because I'm telling you that the Neumanns have a much more closed off, kind of crowded musicality, crowded representation of the song. Now, on this particular one, which one would I would pick the 7200s if I was talking about just enjoying the song. Which one would I pick to really get the details? That's a toss-up. See, I don't think that the 7200s have a substantial amount more of detail, but I think there is a little bit more detail in the treble. And if you had to choose, you're sitting at your studio and you're like, okay, I have the Neumanns and I have the 7200s. Which one should I use? If you want a little bit more detail from the treble, the 7200. If you want to know how your bass is going to sound, probably with typical headphones, I would probably go with the 7200s, because the Neumanns have such a weird bass response that it's rolled off. You're going to end up adding more, and that's going to add distortion and bleed in, and it's going to make things sound funky because they're bass light on this song. Let's go to Want You Back by Haim. I had the 7200s on. There's more energy to her vocal. Definitely more detail in the treble. Peakier in the treble. Almost sibilant. But very clear. Like, you hear the piano, the guitar, the drum, the three vocalists, all very separate, good definition amongst everything, and a lot of energy in the treble. Ooh. I just increased the volume real quick, and that hurt. Now, on this song, the drum is more forward than the vocal, and that takes away from the vocal presence. Now, that doesn't mean that the vocals are indistinguishable. They have their own portion on the stage, and you know the vocals when they come in. They're very clear, they're precise, they are detailed, but the bass is a little bit heavier. It's more heavy-handed than it is with the Neumann. So she takes a breath just about 1 minute 40 seconds or so. Let me find it. So 141, both of us now, and as she says both of us now, she takes a quick breath and she then launches into the next series of lyrics. The breath it's half a second, if that. But the 7200s do allow you to get that detail, and it's not finite detail. It's not as if, oh, you're hunting for it. Maybe it's there. It was clearly present. It was clearly present as I was playing the song, and I went back to verify that it was there. And indeed, it is there. 1 minute and 41 seconds into this song. Would you call that a micro detail? Yeah, that is, in my opinion, that is a micro detail. It's just it's a very quick breath. So let's switch the Neumanns. Let's start again and see how these perform. All right, here we go. Oops. Let's switch to the Neumanns. Here we go again. much more roll off in the treble region. It doesn't get even remotely close to sibilant. It lacks that energy that the 7200s has in the treble region. And by energy, I mean the emphasis. Probably you could call it the emphasis. I would. Now you could say, well, that's flat. That means that the Neumanns are flat. Well, not necessarily, because I'm not getting all the detail. It's one thing to have flat, and it's another thing to not have detail. You can be flat and have detail. If there's nothing else that's wrong with the headphones, and I'm not getting the detail, it's just so buttery. It's almost gooey, and it doesn't make sense to me. Because it has almost a tonality of a warm-sounding headphone. What are warm-sounding headphones? Warm/dark-sounding headphones. Well, for me, that means that the bass is boosted and the treble is decreased. And so kind of more intimate feeling. It's more warm sounding, right? It's a sensation you get. Well, the bass is not boosted. It's very lackluster in comparison. And the treble is decreased. So now it's, what kind of shape is it? It's an S shape, I guess. It's a lazy S. That's what I would call it. And it doesn't make any sense to me. There's no real bass impact. I mean, you wouldn't listen to these pair of headphones for fun. If you wanted like to rock out to your favorite beats, you would probably go with a different set of headphones. If you wanted to listen to something to relax, I could see you listening to the Neumanns, but there are better options. Maybe at higher prices, I admit, but certainly better options than the Neumanns. And at $500, I find it hard to believe that you wouldn't mind spending another $100 or $150 for something that is much better in giving you the comfort feeling, like the LCD2 closed. That's a very relaxing pair of headphones. But that's just my opinion. I don't want to pass judgment on you. Let's go back to 1 minute and 40 seconds because of that micro detail we're talking about, the breath. Let's see if I can bring that out. I'm going to take this up to about almost 100% volume. Barely. See, I even know where to look for it. And I'm trying really hard to pay attention. I'll increase the volume to 100% on Spotify, which means negative 10 decibels coming right into my headphones. I'm going to go back to 136 and play. Here we go. Yeah, that breath is much harder to find on the Neumanns. And when you do an A and B comparison, clearly the 7200s have that additional detail, and it's much easier to find on the 7200s. The first or second pass through that I had with the Neumann, I couldn't find it. The third pass, the one I just did, I found it, but I was paying close attention. I was looking at the timestamp, watching it get closer to 140, 141, and I was like, okay, it's coming. And then I found it. Whereas with the 7200s, I heard it, and then I went back and said, where is it? Where's the timestamp on this? Where is it? In my opinion, that's a big difference. What about the bass reproduction? No. I mean, when the bass hits, when the drum hits, it hits, and it's got presence to it, but it has no impact. It sounds hollow almost. And let's assume that you're mixing the song, and you're sitting down with the artist, and the artist says, I want there to be 10 seconds of just drum. And then at the last second and a half of that drum solo, we're going to start singing. And we're going to start melding our voices into the drums. And then the drums are going to kind of slowly fade in the background. And then our voices are going to come up. Let's assume that's what they want to do. And they have tasked you, meaning asked, tasking. They've asked you to do this, help them do this. Well, you're sitting there listening to it, you go, there's just not enough bass. we're going to have to add a little bit more. And so you're in your at your mixing board, and you're adding a little bit more in that frequency, and you're adding a little bit more in that frequency, and you're listening on your Neumann, and then they start singing everything. Okay, done. It sounds great on the Neumann. Then you send it out for mastering, and the artist is sitting there. Sorry, I hit the microphone. The artist is sitting there with their own set of headphones, and for whatever reason, they don't have the Neumann. Only you have the Neumann. They have something else. They have, I don't know, an AH-D7200, or a Denon, or an Odyssey, or they have iPod headphones on. And they're sitting there, they're listening to it, and all of a sudden they realize, what is going on with the bass? What did you do? You destroyed. This is not what we asked for. Now you can't even hear what we wanted the last 2 seconds of that drum solo. Go back and change it. That's what probably is going to happen. Because these headphones, the Neumanns, are so bass light, you're going to get a false impression. Now you might say, I can learn to live with that. I can understand what the Neumanns do, and it's going to sound great because I have an idea of how much to put in. That's great. If you can teach yourself that, that's not a problem. But if you don't know how to teach yourself that, or you simply can't teach yourself that, no matter how hard you try, it's not possible for you to get that perfect mix, what are you going to do then? Just food for thought. I'm going to skip Angel, because that's not going to be a fair comparison at all. Let's go to Scherzo for X-Wings, because that's orchestral. That should have more soundstage, theoretically. I have the Neumann on my head. Let's start with Scherzo. There's soundstage left and right. There's just not much of it. It doesn't feel like you're sitting in a concert hall. It's as if you're sitting in your living room listening to speakers. You're watching the movie, right? You're watching The Force Awakens on your 65-inch television, and you happen to have some satellite speakers. That's what it sounds like. But it sounds good for your house, but in no way does it give you the representation of being in the theater, either watching the movie or being in a concert hall listening to the orchestra. There's no peakiness whatsoever to this song. It's very, I wouldn't say relaxing, but the way that the Neumann reproduced the horns, the string instruments, the wind instruments is not natural. If you've ever sat at a real orchestra and you sit there and you listen to the music, there are inevitably there are peaks to the treble, and it can get really ear-piercing depending on what they play and how they play it. And I guarantee you that for this song, there are trebly parts. I can't find those trebly parts. I've maxed out the volume, and I can't get the treble. Now, you might say, well, that's good. You are treble averse. Exactly, I am treble averse. And so I would listen to the Neumanns and not be bothered. But if I'm looking for detail and I'm mixing and I'm mastering, I would be very irritated. Because all of a sudden, now maybe I'm adding detail or trying to increase that particular frequency, and it will ruin it for every other human being on the planet who doesn't have the Neumann. Okay, let's put on the 7200. I can't say that the 7200s have the same type of reproduction of the Neumann. They don't. It doesn't sound a whole lot wider than the 7200s, but there's definitely more detail. There's more detail to the song. The treble is definitely more energetic. There's clear separation of all the instruments. Significantly better bass reproduction because you can hear the rumble of the drum, though that rumbling does not bleed into any of the other frequencies. So as I said, the Neumann is like sitting in your living room and listening to your satellite speakers. I would describe the 7200s as sitting in a small movie theater that seats 50 people, and listening to the song on those speakers for that room. Definitely bigger room, bigger speakers. Not a concert hall, but significantly different type of representation than the Neumann. And if you went and watched the movie, The Force Awakens, and this song came up, and you listened to this song in that 50-seat theater, and then you immediately went home and you put in the soundtrack in your living room and you heard it, you would know the difference. You would say, that doesn't sound the same. And it doesn't sound the same. Not even remotely close. As far as the presence, the energy, the impact of the song, it's not the same. Yes, the Denons are colored. Denon just has its own take on their headphones, which is fine. They say that it's a reference. I would say that it's reference to the extent that you do in fact get more detail. More detail in the treble. The bass is more present, more rumble. Not the cleanest bass I've ever heard. That would be probably the TH900s, but definitely nowhere close to the muddy bass that I've heard on other headphones. The Neumanns don't get muddy either, but they don't have any bass that I could say that it would get muddy. It's just there. It's the C student competing with, the B student, essentially. Maybe there's a difference of maybe 5 points between them, but the difference is still there. Let's go to Flight from the City, because that's a piano-heavy song. I have the 7200s on my head. Micro detail immediately present. The creaking of the seats as the pianist moves back and forth. You can hear that thumping of the keys hitting the keyboard. There's resonance to the piano. As the piano keys strike, you can hear that resonance carrying for a brief second or 2 seconds. I could hear that sizzling electrical buzz in the background. Very clean. The string instruments are they're in the background. The piano is center stage. There's no muddiness, no bleed in amongst the frequencies. There is separation and there's definition, both. Let's switch the Neumann. Oh God! Immediately, very different presentation of this song. It seems like I'm stuck in a closet. The piano's representation, being represented with the Neumann, is, in my opinion, my subjective opinion, awful compared to the 7200. It sounds hollow. And there's no real naturalness to the piano strikes. You know, I don't know what the treble is doing. I don't know what Neumann was thinking, but it sounds almost like the piano is stunted. Like the keys aren't being pressed all the way down into the keyboard. I hear the string instruments, but they're basically even with the piano. And there's a little bit of bleed in from the string instrument frequency into the piano frequency. Not well defined. There's separation, not great separation, but there's no definition also. And it gets muddy when both are playing. You know, as the sound keeps playing, the definition gets less. Like if you're watching the sound stage, if you're at the stage, everything is just in line, and you're listening to it. You're going, I need things to come in a little slower because I can't tell which frequency it is anymore. The electric buzz with the Neumann sounds weird. It sounds like more like distortion than it does as a detail. The electric buzz is supposed to be the sizzle, this pop, almost like old tubes. If you were to sit there and put a microphone next to a tube, you would hear that type of sizzle and pop. That's not the representation I get on the Neumann. I get more like, a distorted potato chip bag that's being crumpled in your hand. That's a slight exaggeration, but not by a whole lot. Okay, let's stop and go back to the beginning because of that micro detail. Let's see how these things respond to that. Oh, God. So, yeah, the micro detail is there, but it gets drowned out by that awful piano representation. It sounds like the piano is stuck inside a metal container. One of those shipping containers. And you are forced to stand there and listen to this piano. The resonance is so unnatural that it loses any joy to this song. So that's the subjective portion. What about the objective portion? Well, let me tell you this. You cannot properly mix and master when the frequency you're looking for, the primary instrument in your song, has a distorted frequency. You just simply can't do that. As I said with the 7200s, when the piano keys strike, excuse me, there's this brief resonance that continues forward for about 1 to 2 seconds before the next piano key comes in. The way that the Neumann represent that, excuse me, the way that the Neumanns represent that is distortion. It's not resonance. Now, if you listen to it at a very low volume, as I am here on Spotify, it sounds a little bit better. So I guess you have to keep the headphones at about 25% volume to start getting deep. That doesn't make any sense, does it? So the higher the volume you have for this song, the worse it gets. So you have to barely even hear it in order to be able to mix or master. So I feel as if in the course of listening to this song on these headphones, I've become more jaded. Tell me if that's how it came across, because that's how I feel. The more I listen to this song on these headphones, the more irritated I became with the Neumann. I am godsmacked to sit here and do this A/B test and suddenly realize that the Neumanns are awful for piano. Yes, I understand. It's only one song on a piano. And how could I possibly judge just one song and say that the Neumann are bad for piano? You're right. You're right. But how could Zio Pantera sit there and tell you that the Neumann are fantastic? You should definitely go out there and spend $500 for them. Come on. But you know what? I will search for a piano song. Let's do piano. Let's put in piano. Piano Man. No, that's Billy Joel. I don't want that. The piano guys. Do they do pianos? Just pianos? Yes, they do. So we're playing 1,000 Years by the Piano Guys. Very soft song. It sounds like a cello being played as well. And I should put this in my test playlist because it's worth doing that. Okay. I'm going to hold judgment. Moving to the 7200. Start again. Here we go. Oh, God. Obvious difference. The 7200s have a much more natural representation of the piano versus the Neumann. I can virtually guarantee that an open bag headphone would one-up both of these headphones. A good open bag would one-up both of these headphones. But since we're stuck between these two, I will tell you this. The piano doesn't sound like it's stuck in a shipping container like it does with the Neumann. Again, with this song. Same thing. And when the cello, and I think it's the cello, when the cello walks in, when the cello plays, on the Neumann, it sounds distorted as hell. It's just unnatural. Cellos should never sound like that. And the Neumann make it sound as if somebody is rattling you, shaking you like you're a baby and you're being shaken to death, and you are forced to listen to the song at the same time. Whereas with the 7200, I'm listening to it, and there's clear definition, clear separation. The cello comes out very nicely, smoothly, undistorted compared to the Neumann. The piano is well represented. It's got its own tonality. The frequencies aren't really bleeding. At least definitely not to the same extent as the Neumanns. More detail to the piano. The 7200s sound wider, more airy than the Neumann. And that's a huge difference between these two songs. God. Want to do Natalie by Milk and Bone? Let's do that. I have the 7200s on. Bass is quite prevalent. I mean, it's fun. And here's how the bass sounds. Here's how the bass sounds at the 7200s. So I think it's a bass guitar that's being played. And it sounds like, you know, have you ever cupped your ears with your hands, like really quick? And it sounds like you're causing a vacuum on your ears, and you hear that popping sensation. That's how it sounds, and it's a fun sound. It's a type of detail that is not easy to reproduce with headphones, because you're moving the air so quickly that it sounds like it's creating a vacuum. That's not what's happening. You're not creating a vacuum, but it's just that representation, and it sounds really nice. Let's keep going. And the vocal starts quietly. Despite the fact that the bass is a little heavy, the vocal is well separated, easily discernible. Plenty of detail in a higher frequency, easily understandable. Her voice is clear and clean. You know, at this portion, she's saying, "I never meant to hurt you. Please don't go away." She's just repeating that. There is detail in how she says it. The treble is clean, crystal clean, and clear. Let's go to the Neumann. And I'm sorry, I keep clearing my throat, but just trying to clear the taste of Neumann's out of my mouth. So bass light. I mean, that could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. That's fine. But compared to the 7200, it sounds flat. The vocal is more closed off, less detailed. In comparison with the 7200, it sounds muddier. There's no sibilance, there's no real peakiness to it. But there's not a whole lot of definition. There's some separation between the instruments and the vocals, but not a lot. Therefore, there's bleed in from the other frequencies into the vocal. Now it's just her singing, and there's a drum in the background slowly thumping. her voice is smooth. When there's no complexity to the song, it sounds really nice. Like nice. That's a nice jacket that you're wearing. Those are nice shoes. It's nice you got a C on your report card. At least you didn't flunk. Around 2 minutes and 30 seconds, she stops singing and the drum comes in. And that's a good drum. There's just enough emphasis, and there's this haunting other vocalist, saying ooh, 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 whatever. And it sounds good. But then when the vocal comes back into the mix, it gets a little bit muddy. Let's go back to 230-ish. And I'm going to switch to the 7200. Let's see how the 7200s handle this. The bass is more rattly, meaning the ear cups rattle more with the bass during this portion of the song. Sounds great, good separation, great definition. When the vocalist finally comes in and joins the mix, the bass is heavy, but her voice still comes in without distortion. Is there muddiness? There is still some muddiness, I have to admit, but it doesn't sound tinny. It doesn't sound like it's closed off, and it doesn't sound as muddy as it does with the Neumann. Okay. 53 minutes of this. Oops. Can you hear the disappointment in my voice? I just... I'm struggling, as I have said it with almost every video about the Neumann. I am struggling to explain these headphones. It's not the same struggle as the DT1770, which are awful headphones and nobody should ever buy. And frankly, Beyerdynamic should have to give reparations to every human being on the planet for ever conceiving of that headphone. They're that bad. The Neumanns are not bad. They're just not great. They're good, but they're not exceptional. They're worthy to have, but if you had a choice between this and another headphone, you wouldn't immediately jump to the Neumann. I wouldn't recommend that you immediately jump to the Neumann. That's not the headphone I would say, that is the headphone that every audiophile should have. Maybe not. The lack of detail retrieval for the Neumann is astounding. When we compared with the Ether C Flow, I told you these headphones just simply do not compare with the micro detail. Yeah, there's some similarities, and yeah, maybe some of the tonality comes out about the same, but the Ether C Flows have much more definition. They are more detailed. They are clearer. They are more open sounding, more airy. It's just a better headphone. Neumanns don't compete. Now, with the 7200s, it's the same story, different, but similar. The 7200s are more airy. They have more definition. They have more clarity. They have more energy in the treble. They have better bass. They have better reproduction of the mids. They have more natural reproduction, significantly more natural reproduction of piano frequencies. They don't get confusing and muddled and distorted when the song becomes complex with multiple instruments. Need I go on? What is happening? When I did my sound test with the Neumanns, it sounded good. And that's what I said. It sounds good. And that's still my position. They sound good. They just don't sound good when compared to other headphones. There's I need another drink of water. I should be having vodka at this point. So, here's the thing. I wasn't going to get the D7200 because I had previously purchased the 5200 and I liked them. And then I just jumped up to the 9200. And the 9200 are detail kings. Those things are like real reference class headphones. Competing the 9200s with the 7200 with the Neumann would be like a grown man taking a 10-year-old boy and then shoving his head into the toilet and giving him a swirly. There's no way that the 10-year-old boy is going to fight back, right? That's how it would be essentially. The 7200s I thought would be a more fair comparison because the 7200s still have their own Denon profile, and I was imagining that the Neumann were going to outclass the Denons with detail because the Denons tend to have a warmer, darker presence. Lo and behold, the 7200 just reproduces sound better, almost entirely across the board. Now, you could say that the Neumann have a slightly better reproduction of bass because they're more flat. I will give you that. That's why I said that the Denons are darker headphones. They just have that bass boost, even though they're calling them reference class. Despite the fact there's a bump in the bass, the Denons still are clearer, better, in all the respects I mentioned earlier. Whereas the Neumanns, they have lower, more light bass reproduction, and they have light treble reproduction, which means you don't get the energy, you don't get the detail from either end. And on top of that, the vocals are recessed, so you don't really get the true representation of the vocal. I can't say it's V-shaped, I can't say it's U-shaped, I can't say it's W-shaped, I don't think it even has a shape. It's just a bottomless pit. How do you explain a headphone like that? Now you could say, dude, you're exaggerating. It can't be that bad. It's not bad. See, that's the thing. It's not bad. The Neumanns, if the Neumanns were marketed as easy headphones to just enjoy, as audiophile headphone, if they were marketed only as audiophile headphones, I would say, you know what? As audiophile headphones, they do something unique. But that's not how they're marketed, and that's not how Zeos and other people are selling them. And yes, Zeos is selling them. The showman-in-chief himself told you about that. And the Neumanns simply just don't produce that. It's like your uncle or your dad on Christmas around the family saying, do that song that you did at school that one time. Like, what the hell are you talking about? No, sing the song. Everybody's going to love it. And you as a kid are trying to sing this song that you don't remember ever singing, and you're just embarrassing yourself in front of everybody, and everybody knows it, and they feel sorry for you. That's the Neumann. Because the uncle, Zeos Pantera, sat around and said, best headphones ever. I'm not going to use my Ether C-Flows, the $1,500 to $1,700 headphones. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to the Neumann. The Neumanns simply don't do the job. It's disappointing. It is so very, very disappointing to invest money. Well, it's not really investing. I should stop saying investing. It might be a lighter punch to me then. To spend money on a pair of headphones and then not get what I was told I was going to get. I got something different, which is unique and pleasant and acceptable, but it's not the thing that I was sold on. Am I still going to keep the Neumann? Probably for a little while. Sure. Yeah. It's not my conclusion. I can't say. Can't ruin the conclusion. So here's the thing. You can get the 7200 on eBay. Now, on Denon's website, they're selling this for $999. $999. So this is good. I like how Denon think that they're giving you a discount. MSRP, $999. You pay $999. It's like Walmart pricing. Regular price, $14.99. Walmart price, $14.95. Thank you. That's the 4 cents are going to go a long way. I appreciate that. They don't even do that. I have no idea why they're doing this. Anyway, $9.99. That's not what you pay. Okay, if you go on eBay, you are going to find these headphones for anywhere between $450 to about $600 ish. I got my Denons without a box, but I got my Denons for about $400. And they, in every respect, they are practically brand new. So it's entirely possible to find the Denons for cheaper than the Neumann, or slightly more expensive than the Neumann. You do the math. Some might say, I need something portable. Okay, look. If you need something portable, then clearly the Denons are not going to do it for you. They're not technically portable headphones. You can't fold them up. But what is this whole thing about folding up headphones? You're not saving yourself a lot of room. Let's be factual about this. When you fold up headphones, it's the same amount of volume. It's just condensed in a different way. Your bag is still lumpy. You still have to make room for your headphones. It's the same amount of mass. The mass doesn't just shrink. It's not a black hole. It doesn't shrink and then all of a sudden it's a tiny thing you can put in your pocket. No, it just collapses. It's the same weight. It's the same dimensions. It's just, folded. And how much room are you actually saving? Maybe 2 inches, 3 inches at best? For you, that's a big thing. Great. I understand. That's your own particular requirement, and nobody should knock that. Good luck. But don't just get stuck on something because other people are stuck on it. The foldiness of a headphone does not make or break it. It might break it if it's foldy and it's got weak points, because the joints are in fact weak points. It's the sound quality. That's what you should be looking for. If you want foldy headphones, there are plenty of foldy headphones for 1/3 the price, and they still sound great. You can get the M50X, which a lot of people swear by. I'm not convinced they're that fantastic. The M50X, what is it, for $149? Maybe less? You can get the Sony 7506 for about $99 brand new. You can get the 7510, which is one of the newer versions, for I think, what is that, $110? $115, something like that. You can get the 7520 for, $250. I mean, those are true studio headphones. They're made for studio use. And real studios actually use those Sonys. And they come in at either 1/3 the price or about half the price of the Neumann. And they fold, some of them. All right, you tell me. Anybody who was hoping that the Neumanns would be this godsend, look, in my experience, I don't find that to be true. I just don't think that they are. I think that if you go back to the Neumann website and you read through it carefully, I don't think that they're really pushing these things hard as reference class headphones for mixing and mastering. I think that's just an afterthought. At least that's the way I took it. I may be wrong. I'll have to go back to the website and take a look at it. The only person who was really pushing it is the you-know-who, the used car salesman of headphones. And, okay, if you want to go with that person's viewpoint, you want to accept it as rote, as biblical prophecy, so be it. That is between you and your wallet. But believe you me, I, who have all these headphones, who tried to take a much more calm approach and more analytical approach, more scientific approach to headphone reviews, do not find the Neumanns to be the things that were advertised by certain individuals. They're still good headphones. They're C. They get the C grade. And it's okay sometimes to get a C grade. Just not when you've been telling everybody that they're A students. That's called a lie. All right, everybody. This is it. I could do a comparison of the Neumann against the Odyssey Sign close back. I could do an M1060C comparison. What else do I have? I have the EL8, so I can do that if you want. If you want one of those three, leave a comment down below. I'll be happy to do a comparison of that. See if there's a difference. I mean, planar magnetics versus the Neumann. Maybe that'll be interesting. All three of those headphones, by the way, you can probably find for cheaper than the Neumann. Definitely the Monolith and the Signs you can find for about half the price of the Neumann. The EL8, they fluctuate, but you can typically expect to find it between $300 and $450. Leave a comment. Let me know if you want one of those three. I'm still on my hunt to find a very cheap, comparatively cheap headphone that might be able to compete with the Neumann. Foot for foot, leg for leg, arm for arm. And if I can find something that is equal to the Neumann, a C class, so to speak, then you and I will at that point, let's just be upfront, I will at that point tell you, you should get the cheaper C student. Don't spend so much money on the other C student. Know what I mean? Have a wonderful night. I am so happy that it's the end of Monday. This week is just going to roll by real quick. You're going to get through it. You're going to have a fantastic weekend. And be safe, enjoy your music, and be happy. I will talk to you all soon. Have a wonderful night.